Hello again. We're endeavoring to do some shorter form series, not as short as a minute and a half, 2 minutes, though many of you have asked for that. Instead, we're going to do a shorter form series that addresses some of the things that I've been wanting to address on the site and on the page for a long time, and that's finding a way to bring down my PhD thesis investigation and analysis and that sort of scholarship down to practical. Everybody wants their stuff to be practical, but we're going to try to do this in short form. So I wanted to start with some quick hits with regard to mythology in the New Testament. As we move on, what you're going to see are, in what I'm going to endeavor to do is between 3 and 4 minute hits when somebody either assumes or just says outright that they believe the default position in a secularized culture about the Bible, and especially about the key New Testament documents, and that is the fact that they would say this is likely ancient mythology. Why? Because the supernatural events are included in it, and in a naturalized, humanistic, secularized culture, this is disallowed. It's just not allowable. So we're going to look at that and move through these just reasons, quick reasons, with some support. Again, short order. Some they're not the normal hour-long form or over hour-long form, but short order form. We'll probably have an audio deployment of this as well. Short order with regard to some of the general issues with considering the Bible mythology, and then some of them we'll get into the nitty-gritty and get into some more of the complex details and try to present them as simply and as straightforwardly and practically as possible. So I hope you enjoy this journey we're going on together. So look forward to seeing you back here. Well, you have somebody that declares that the New Testament documents that contain the best record of Jesus' life and death and resurrection alleged is mythology. It is to be considered something along the order of a Aesop's Fables or an Iliad or an Odyssey with very, very marginal, small h historical elements thrown in to make the tale a little bit more interesting in the tale being told. So we're going to look at very, very short form responses to this sort of thing if you get into a jam and you need something very, very quick. And here's the first thing. We're supposed to give ancient documentation the benefit of the doubt when we do analysis. And when it comes to the New Testament, we'll get to the Old in future installments, but when it comes to the New Testament, the authors go out of their way to distance themselves from being considered mythology, a mythological a document or a record that's to be considered something with regard to mythology or in the mythological genre. So let me show you a couple of these passages right up front. If you can commit these to memory, it'd be great, but if not, you have them right here. 2 Peter 1:16, for we did not follow cleverly devised stories when we told you about the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ in power, but we were eyewitnesses to his majesty. So Peter here is coming right out the gate and saying to at the time, the embattled Christian community to whom he's addressing in his letter, that we were eyewitnesses. This was not folklore. This was not myth. This was not legend. You can disagree with us. You can even dispute the account. But it does no good to say that we didn't really experience this and we didn't really see it and we didn't really have these experiences. According to our own testimony, these were real experiences. Let's look at the second. 1 Timothy, Paul here, 1:3-4, in this great near manual for vocational ministry and how to do ministry with new and even some veteran Christians and Jews. Listen to what Paul says here to his protege, Timothy. As I urged you when I went into Macedonia, stay there in Ephesus so that you may command certain people not to teach false doctrines any longer or to devote themselves to myths and endless genealogies. Such things promote controversial speculations rather than advancing God's work, which is by faith. Here you have Paul saying there's probably something, most commentators say something about the genealogies with regard to the Jewish converts to Christianity and who came from whose line and how, from Jesus on down. And then the difficulty of merging pagans with no Jewish background or no idea, this sort of just working with general revelation with these converted Jews. And he says they should not devote themselves to myths. This is likely referring to the Gentile or pagan, non-Jewish convert audience that were given to myths, mythologies, their religious traditions and their polytheism were rife with the sort of things that Paul's attempting to tell Timothy to be aware of. But you need to actively fight this thing. In your deployment for ministry, you need to fight the sort of Jewish, I'm holier than thou by pedigree, or I have a better background from which to work. Everybody's equal at the foot of the cross, or the pagan sort of drift over into myths and endless controversies about certain issues. 2 Timothy 4:3-5, for the time will come when men will not put up with sound doctrine. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. So again, Paul's warning, this could happen. This is one of those already, not yet. Paul's warning for future Christians in the future, in the eschaton, and for Timothy, very practically right there, that you're going to deal with people saying something like this has to be mythology because miracles are associated with it and unexpected sort of things are happening. So again, 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy 1, 1 Timothy 1, 2 Timothy 4, you have Paul warning Timothy about him being concerned about the charge of mythology, the idea that mythology would be the context whereby they would dismiss the gospel and the life of Jesus Christ. So Titus, again, another protege of Paul's that he was looking to put in charge of a church, likely that he had just had blood, sweat, and tears over and sacrificed at great cost to himself. Listen to what he says to his protege Titus here. This saying is true, therefore rebuke them sharply. He's talking about those that dispute him, especially those publicly, either in the synagogue or in the home church setting. So they will be sound in faith and will pay no attention to Jewish myths or to merely human commands of those that reject the truth. So here Paul is again warning his up-and-coming pastor or head of church or proclaimer, evangelist and pastor and elder in training, Titus here, right after 1st and 2nd Timothy, that you're going to have to pay attention to also Jewish myths, where the Jewish cultures was one of the adversaries of the early Christian movement. They were trying to co-opt this as some sort of a minor sect that needed to either be assimilated or eliminated into Judaism. And he's saying Jewish myths or merely human commands of those that tend to reject the truth. 1 Timothy 4:7 have nothing to do with godless myths and old wives' tales. Rather, train yourself to be godly. Listen to the beloved, with either John the Elder or John the Beloved here in 1 John 1:1-4. That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we have looked at with our hands, and our hands have touched, this we proclaim concerning the word of life. The life appeared, we have seen it and testified to it, and we proclaim to you the eternal life, which was with the Father and has appeared to us. We proclaim to you that we have seen and heard, so that you may also have fellowship with us. And our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. We write this to make our joy complete. So much packed into the prologue here at 1 John, in the first chapter. A lot going on there. But the main takeaway is this. John is endeavoring, as one of the last what we call tradents, the one guarding the Jesus tradition as an eyewitness, writing likely from Ephesus near the end of his life, writing this letter and saying something, if it is John the Beloved or John the Elder, being very, very clear that we were eyewitnesses. This is not a made-up tale. This is not a tale from hundreds and thousands of years ago that we're saying kind of happened, but no one's here to verify it. We can verify this. You see allusions here to what Paul sets up at the end of 1 Corinthians 15, a chapter and a book of which many, many skeptics are want to call authentic when they look across the 27 books of the New Testament. But notice here, we've heard him with our ears. We've seen him with our eyes. This is not a myth. What we're telling you is supernatural. It's wondrous. It's mystical. It's history. It's grounded in history. And last one before we knock off here, Luke 1, 1 through 4. Many have undertaken to draw up an account of the things that have been fulfilled among us, just as they were handed down to us by those who from the first were eyewitnesses and servants of the word. With this in mind, since I myself have carefully investigated everything from the beginning, I too decided to write an orderly account for you, most excellent Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things you've been taught. And then we have a reference here to Paul, what I just said in 1 Corinthians 15. So again, you see Dr. Luke here trying to write up an orderly account, endeavoring to, again, introduce his research and his presentation of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus based in solid historical spade work. Again, did he have all the techniques and methods and ways of investigating history that we have today? No. But Luke is going out of his way, Dr. Luke here is going out of his way to give an orderly account. And there's a reason for that, because these fall into, the Gospels fall into the genre of ancient biography, and we can talk about that in a future installment. But know this, we want to take the Gospel authors and the New Testament authors seriously when they say we were eyewitnesses and what we're reporting to you really happened in space-time history. We want to be very, very clear about that. And that's taking seriously the fact that the New Testament authors, this is one way to sum it up, distance themselves from the charge of myth. And if we're going to take them seriously, we have to at least put some weight behind that charge. They are endeavoring to say this is something other than mythology. It's not made up. It's history. It's historia. So this is, though it's not a straight historical account, we do this with other ancient authors. We try to give them the benefit of the doubt, and they say, I'm not doing mythology. They, again, could they be lying? Of course, but it's not about possibility, it's about probability. So we want to stop right here and say, very first, what do you do with the fact that the primary New Testament authors, the Jesus tradients of the gospel, those that carry the Jesus tradition, distance themselves over and over again from the charge of mythology? You may call it that anyway, but what do you do with this? How do you account for the fact that they are trying to, like other ancient authors, make a distinction, a really hard distinction between the history they're reporting and the mythology that's going on in the world around them about figures that are maybe similar or have similar sort of things attached to them, fantastical experiences. So with that, that's our first stop.